of God's children into the life of the church. There's more about the session action, more about the Covenant Network in your bulletin and in the weekly emails. We turn now to the Gospel of John. It is the 17th chapter. It is the final night of Jesus' life on earth. It is among his final words with and among his disciples. And in the words we're going to hear today, Jesus is fulfilling what traditional theologians often call one of his three offices. That Jesus fulfills the office of prophet, priest, and king. And here he prays for his disciples. He prays for us, and so is part of his priestly ministry on our behalf. Listen now to the word of God. After Jesus had spoken these words, he looked up to heaven and he said, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you, since you have given him authority over all people to give eternal life to all whom you have given to him. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. I glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. So now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had in your presence before the world existed. I have made your name known to those whom you gave me from the world. They were yours, you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything you have given me is from you. For the words that you gave to me, I have given to them, and they have received them, and they know in truth that I came from you. And they have believed that you sent me. I'm asking on their behalf. I'm not asking on behalf of the world, but on behalf of those whom you gave to me, because they are yours. All mine are yours, yours are mine, and I have been glorified in them. And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given to me, so that they may be one as we are one." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Among the adages that I learned in my years of backpacking and canoeing was the admonition, "Leave no trace." The goal in our use and enjoyment of places like the Boundary Waters, Denali National Park, wherever we were camping, the goal was to leave no trace. And it is a great standard for people to keep as good stewards of God's wilderness. But I will tell you that probably Gary Eckert doesn't think it's a good adage to share on a Sunday where we're talking about legacy giving. In many ways, the call to leave a legacy through something like our 1837 Legacy Society is a call to, in fact, leave a trace, something to show that we were here, not so much for our praise as it is to be of benefit to those who come after us. So we are called to leave a trace, a legacy, a blessing for those who will come in the future. Now, among the legacies that Jesus desires for himself and for his disciples, and therefore for us, among the legacies he desires, for which he prays, is the legacy of unity. And unlike a well-executed will, Jesus' legacy is left in the hands and the hearts of human beings who do not always excel at carrying out his wishes. Now, as a product of religious schism, from the Reformation to the Reformed churches of Europe, to the Presbyterian churches of Scotland, to the Presbyterian denominations of the United States, all of us here as members of DCPC, we are products not of unity, but of religious schism. And I know in those schisms we did not always honor the last will and testament of Jesus, at least as it comes in the form of this prayer from John 17. Now, I get it. I'm a member of a large extended family. I have 27 first cousins on my mom's side. I had 10 aunts and uncles. In large families, which we sometimes use as a metaphor for the church, unity can be hard in the midst of all the diversity that we enjoy. And I also know that difference and diversity does not always have to be disunity, not at least in the negative sense of the word. I know this because I can recall a Tuesday night conversation with a Roman Catholic priest, 2 Presbyterian ministers, an Episcopalian rector, and a Lutheran pastor. No, that's not the start of a joke. Holy Humor Sunday was a few weeks ago. This is a true story. We had gathered along with members of some of our respective congregations to celebrate the week of prayer for Christian unity. It happens every year, the month of January, towards the end of the month. And for the first time in our community's history, all of these major congregations were gathering to celebrate the week of prayer for Christian unity. And how did we celebrate our Christian unity? What did all of the wise and peace-seeking pastors talk about? We talked about our different theologies of the Lord's Supper. And I would love to tell you that I remember how at the end we said, despite all of our commonality, despite all of our differences, here are the things we have in common. But that's not what I remember. What I actually remember is a parishioner saying, with a little bit of a grin and chagrin, "This was a good start to thinking about Christian unity. Thank you. Maybe next year we can actually model it in the conversation." So I know that difference and division do not always have to be disunity in the negative sense of the word. But even on a day when the General Assembly of the PCUSA and our Presbyterian Historical Society direct our attention to the 40-year anniversary of the reunion of the Northern and Southern Presbyterian churches, the mere prefix "re," it denotes division. That was definitely disunity, with Presbyterians in the 1860s preaching sermons that were direct attacks on one another, support for their respective governments, and either criticism or defense of the institution of slavery. Now, thankfully, the legacy for some Presbyterians these days is a move towards unity. I say some. There are still lots of acronyms to describe the various Presbyterian groupings in the United States. And I can tell you that even now at the highest levels of our church government, we have a commission on reunification as we try and help so many different committees actually come together and pull in the traces as a unified form of church government. And while most of our unease and division as Presbyterians is behind us, today, of course, some of us are thinking about our Methodist friends and families who are indeed struggling with unity these days. All of this must at some level grieve Jesus, who prayed for something far better than the current state of Christian unity. We are called to leave a legacy that is, according to John, the legacy of Jesus, and that is unity. And it is a unity centered on the call to love one another, to love the world as Jesus loved us. And we know that that call seems as hard as ever to hear and embody in the current climate in which we live. But the prayer of Jesus reflects the fact that he knew it would be hard. If not hard, why would he have prayed so fervently that we would be empowered to live in unity and in love? The prayer of Jesus reflects that he knew it would be hard, and it was his prayer that our love for one another and for the world would survive the vicissitudes of our respective times. Now, I know that our differences as Christians are sometimes rooted in deeply held theology. And I realize for some, the differences are holding some very personal stakes for some of us. But the call of Jesus to unity still remains. So to that end, I ask you, what is your legacy? What trace are you leaving behind in your family, in our community, in this community of faith? If you're leaving a trace or a legacy, what is it? Among the people who leave a trace that's often unremarked upon are teachers. We all know them. We all give thanks for them. Hopefully, at some point, we give thanks to them. But the seeds that teachers plant often grow to fruition beyond their sight. A teacher for whom I give thanks today is someone named Esther Porter. She was a foreign language teacher at a local high school who frequented most any activity that her church had, especially activities that were around the international church. At a time when the Cold War was drawing lines between countries, even among Christians, her congregation brought ministers from Cuba and the Middle East and Asia to speak about their ministries, ministries that were sometimes opposed by our own American government, ministries that sometimes had their own prophetic witness to the Americans of the United States. Many people at this church talk about the visit of ministers from Northern Ireland who had a word to share with black and white churches in the United States who had yet to be unified truly in spirit after the civil rights era. When Esther died, she left a gift to her congregation, a gift that funded that ecumenical minister program in perpetuity, ensuring that decades of Christian servants from around the world could travel to and speak at Esther's church. And her congregation has actually traced the impact of those visits. And the legacy of that program includes people working for the State Department, Presbyterian Mission co-workers, support for peace-building efforts as far away as Israel, as close as the American border, a legacy that includes resettling refugees from war-torn areas in the United States. That is Esther Porter's legacy, the trace of love and unity that she has left behind. Today, as we commission our own mission teams to Kenya and Nicaragua, I am thankful for the portion of our endowment fund that helps sow the seeds of Christian unity across international borders. Our recent Legacy Society newsletter noted that our endowment shared almost $3,000 last year for those international partnerships. And I can tell you firsthand that to a people who often feel left alone in the world by their governments, by their economies, these partnerships that are embodied in visits like these, they reflect a unity that gives life to those who receive those visits. And to a people who sometimes act as though we are wholly self-sufficient unto ourselves without need for God or for others, these partnerships, when we travel, they give us a gift of unity in life that we didn't even know we needed. Just ask someone who has traveled to Kenya and heard a community ululate in joy, or have traveled to Central America and watched the villagers stream from the forest to greet them, members of churches like you who have wept for a love that comes from above and flows through fellow Christians in love. Such unity, the more excellent way of which Paul writes in Corinthians, it is the fulfillment of another part of Jesus' prayer. Here in John 6:17, he also says, "Now I am coming to you, Father, and I speak these things in the world so that my disciples may have my joy made complete in themselves." Our unity is Christ's joy made complete in you. We are his legacy. Again, in the words of John, may it bring honor to his name and joy to you as well. In the name of the Father,